Alright, hello people, I'm the Dude, and this is my review rant for Oblivion, the newest Tom Cruise movie. Short and sweet, it was okay, I guess. A little slower than I would like, a little less memorable than I would like, but it was okay. The long version, gonna be spoilers, obviously. The pace was painful, really painful. Movies are usually broken up into the setup and then the payoff. The setup is them letting you know about the characters and their past and the history and all the tidbits. And then the payoff is using the information we've learned throughout the movie to do something cool. Something happens, something memorable. That's where all the big moments are. You know, that's where people get the great lines. And the big climactic, battle scenes and things happen, This movie had way too much setup, way too much setup, and there was very little payoff. Having said that, that seems like I'm making it sound like it's the worst movie ever. Having said that, the plot made sense once it got going, everything pieced together well, and the characters weren't terrible. There was no irritating little nagging black spots, on the movie, that kind of thing. Some that I can point to and go, wow, that really sucked. As a whole, it wasn't great. Just period. I mean, in movies that are truly great, that are truly amazing, that are worth, like 8s and 9s and 10s and stuff like that, there are amazing scenes, amazing memorable scenes where you can point to it. Like, like Top Gun, where he's lost his confidence, and he doesn't want to fly anymore, and he doesn't want to engage. They get in that big fight scene at the end, where he's Iceman's wingman, right? And he doesn't want to engage. He doesn't want to back him up. He doesn't want to help. He's leaving him, hanging him out to dry, basically. And, Iceman's like pleading with him. He's like, get in there. Or no, that's not Iceman. It's the other guy. It's the other pilot or whatever. He's pleading with him. Get in there. He needs your help. Come on. Get in there, Maverick. And, he grows a pair. He gets back in the game. And, he saves Iceman's ass. And they blow up all the bad guys. And, good stuff. You can be my wingman any day. No, you can be mine. No, it's shit like that. That's a great scene. That's a scene that, people will never forget. I can't point to a single scene in this movie, not one, that I'll remember a week from now, let alone years. There are no memorable scenes in this. There are no scenes with great emotional weight. There are no interesting scenes where there's some kind of twist or some kind of suspense where a big reveal happens, or none of that. No big, like one-liners or none of that in this movie at all. It's just slow and methodical, and it gets where it's going. The ending isn't terrible, but it's not amazing, and it just kind of happens. I don't know what else to say. None of the actors are bad. None of them. They're all believable, and they get the job done. And Morgan Freeman shouldn't have been in this movie. If you're going to see this for Morgan Freeman, you're wasting your time. He gets a handful of lines, and none of them are interesting at all. He's just kind of there. There's a couple of moments in the movie where they could have been really badass moments. One is where he jumps in the turret, and he's going to take out one of the drones. And that could have been a badass moment, but it's over in a flash, and nothing really happens. They don't do anything with it. There's a moment at the very end of the movie where the cryopod opens, and it's actually Morgan Freeman in there. That could have been a badass moment. They do nothing with it at all. It's just lame. Wasted potential. The actors aren't bad, but they just don't have a lot to work with here, honestly. What else? The genre, I don't know what genre this is. I honestly couldn't tell you. This thing has it listed as action, adventure, sci-fi, mystery, thriller. Right, okay. Let's break this down. There's like all of 4 action scenes in the entire movie. There's one in the beginning where the Resistance try to capture Tom Cruise. He fires blindly into the darkness, and that's it. The scene's over. There's a scene where he's flying his fighter jet, and he blows up a couple of drones. Probably the best scene in the entire movie, honestly. But even that wasn't amazing. There's a scene where the drones get into the rebel base. their underground base or whatever. There's no emotional tension at all there because we don't know any of the fucking rebels at all. We know nothing about them. I think the only one that's got any lines up to this point was Morgan Freeman and the other random guy. I don't even know what his name is. They get a couple of lines, but that's it. We know nothing about the rebels at all. So when they get blown to bits, no one cares. It's terrible storytelling. The people we're supposed to sympathize with, we know nothing about. That's 3 scenes. There's got to be at least one more, right? I'm trying to think. There's a scene where Tom Cruise fist fights himself. His name in the movie is Jack. He fights another Jack, but it lasts all of 1 minute, and it's not like the Bourne Supremacy where it's like these crazy badass fight scenes. No, it's just they throw a couple of punches, and then, he chokes him out at the end or something like that. That's it. It's really short, really meaningless, very uninteresting. You could leave action completely off of here. There's not much action. Adventure, not really any excitement. This isn't like an Indiana Jones movie where there's like really big climactic scenes or whatever. No, adventure, maybe, I guess, but then anything could technically be an adventure, I suppose. Sci-fi, shit. You never see the aliens. The big menace throughout the movie that he's fighting, that the rebels are fighting, are unmanned drones. They're these little floating robot things with guns on the side. That's it. That's all they fight throughout the entire movie. Over and over again, they fight the drones. There's not much sci-fi here. I mean, technically, the big ship in the sky, the tent is what they call it, the spaceship in space. Technically, it's controlled by an alien presence. It doesn't matter. That doesn't even come into fucking play at all until the very end of the movie. So that's definitely not sci-fi because of that. They're technically firing laser guns, but the way they use them, they might as well just be assault rifles. I mean, there's not much sci-fi to be had here. Prometheus, this is not. Total Recall, this is not. It's not that kind of movie. If you're here for sci-fi, you're gonna be disappointed. Mystery. Technically, it's supposed to be a mystery, although the trailers blew pretty much everything. But it's supposed to be a mystery that the scavengers are actually the humans, and the tent, the big spaceship in the sky, isn't filled with humans. It's filled with an alien presence, and it's been using Jack and Victoria. Tom Cruise and his communications officer, they're cloned. There's like thousands of them, and they're basically just there to as a maintenance crew. They're janitors, basically. They're there to keep things running. There's thousands of them in all these different quadrants around the world. They keep these little machines running, little big machines running that steal the Earth's water or whatever. He thinks that in the big spaceship in the sky, there's humans, and they're going to be evacuated to Titan, one of the moons for Mars or whatever. Turns out that the big spaceship in the sky is actually controlled by the aliens, and or actually the alien, I guess. There's only really one, I suppose. I don't know. And the scavengers that he's been fighting all this time are actually the remnants of the humans. Big, huge, massive, gigantic plot hole. Why didn't they just take off their fucking mask? I mean, if one of them, just one of them, in any of the many encounters he's had with them, take off their little, armored mask thing, he would see that they're humans. Boom. Problem solved. Why did they never do that? They try to capture him early in the movie, right? You wouldn't even need to capture him. Just take off your mask, say, hi there, hello, I'm a human, and he'd go walk off with you, gladly. Because he thinks that he's, on the human side or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, huge, massive plot hole. But anyways, whatever. The plot in general, it does well to try to keep you invested, but it's just so damn slow throughout the movie that I couldn't help but yawn a couple of times. And it thinks it's more clever than it is. It's trying to give you all this information building up to the one realization, and you don't need it. I mean, most of it is meaningless. Most of the time, with him bopping around, the sand or whatever, the world's been destroyed, and it's basically just sand everywhere. It's more boring than anything. I mean, it's not entertaining. Nothing is going on. So, I don't know. Whatever. Where was I? I don't even remember at this point, honestly. I guess I'll talk about the music next, because I can't remember where I was. The music, it's mostly orchestral, but they've got a couple of real songs. Ramble On from Led Zeppelin, and then Whiter Shade of Pale. They have no idea how to use music at all. if you're going to put real music in a movie that has very little, it's all orchestral otherwise, you use it in the big fucking scenes. You use it in the big fucking important scenes, you know, the climactic scenes. They just use it at random. I shit you not. Completely at random. The first time you hear Ramble On, he's in his little fucking cabin out in the middle of nowhere doing nothing. Nothing is happening. Nothing at all is happening. Of any kind. The second time we hear real music is Whiter Shade of Pale. In the fucking cabin again. Nothing's happening. I mean, nothing at all. And then at the end, at the very end of the movie, where he's in his little Harrier jet spaceship thing, which is probably the coolest thing about this movie. That thing was badass. It's got like vector jets on it, and the cockpit itself can like spin independently of the jet. It just looks really cool. They don't really do much with it, but it looks really cool. Like, it's right there. That's what I'm talking about. That's the Harrier jet thing. It's probably hard to see, but he's flying that thing up to the mothership, right? Their plan is they're gonna suicide themselves. They're gonna sacrifice themselves, fly the jet up there, and then pack it full of bombs, explosives, and then blow up the mothership from the inside. Very fucking obvious. Been done in I don't know how many sci-fi movies. But on his way up there, he plays Ramble On again. He plays the music again for about a nanosecond. And again, wasted potential because the scene itself should have had gravity, but it didn't. It was very bland. All the scenes that should have been emotional, I think it was, ironically enough, Tom Cruise dragging them down. He showed no emotion in this movie at all, of any kind. His wife gets shot. Okay, he just kind of leaves, go gets the med kit, comes back, saves her. You know what I mean? There's no emotion on his face, nothing. There's no weight to the scene. The rebels, the remnants of the humans, they're getting blown up left and right. You know, like little fucking clay figurines, and he doesn't care. He's just kind of running through the motions, and at the end, Morgan Freeman's dying. He just walks up and kind of like grabs his hand, and they have some dialogue, and then it's over. There's no nothing to invest you into the scenes in this movie. It's painful. It's not that the movie itself is bad in and of itself. It's just, I think the script was bad. You know, I mean, like, the plot itself really wasn't terrible. I think it was the script that let this movie down. Big time. Back to the genre, I don't even think, now that I think about it, I don't even think any of this applies. I think this was a romance. Because the core of this movie is Jack's character and his wife, Julia. They're the core of this movie. They're what the movie is about. They're the driving force. He finds Julia, she crashes back to Earth or whatever. He saves her from the drones, and then, you know, they kind of go through their little back and forth thing where he doesn't really know who she is. He only has memories of her, and she's being really fucking vague for no reason whatsoever. And then later on, she finds out that he's actually a clone. He's not the real Jack. He's not her real husband. There's thousands of him or whatever. And she, you know, rightfully so, puts distance between them. She gets shot. He saves her. She basically forgives him, and she's like, it's all hunky-dory now. Let's live our life together, you know, in the cabin or whatever. And then he sacrifices himself for, I guess, her and the rest of humanity or whatever. All of that, that's the big thread going through the movie. It's their two characters. The resistance don't really matter. The alien ship doesn't really matter. The sci-fi, the action elements don't really matter. It's all about them. You know, they're the core of the movie. They should have labeled this as like a romantic sci-fi drama or something. Romantic sci-fi drama. That's probably more accurate. Although I guess that wouldn't sell very many tickets, would it? I don't know. Whatever. Let's see. What else? I'm trying to think. Is there anything else memorable about this movie even worth mentioning? I don't know. I can't think of anything else. I don't know. Like I said, I liked the little Harrier jet thing. That was kind of cool. There was one scene where he's getting chased by the drones, and it was kind of cool. It wasn't bad. He's like flying around and flipping around, and his ship's doing all kinds of cool stuff, and he's blowing up the drones, and there could have been more of that. There wasn't. He flies the ship multiple times, but that's all he does. He just flies it from point A to point B, and then gets out. So, I don't know. I mean, I think the pace could have been way faster. I think the payoff could have been way better. There could have been more weight in the scenes in general. They could have meant more. There could have been more interesting scenes, period. There was way too much setup in this movie. I don't know. I think they just spend way too much time on the fluff, honestly. And way too little time on the good stuff. You know, the stuff that that's memorable. Scenes that, you know, you want to see. The reason why you're there. The reason why you're watching a movie in the first place. But, I don't know. It wasn't a terrible movie. It just had big problems. I guess that makes it a terrible movie. I don't know. I didn't hate it. Let's put it that way. I didn't hate the movie. I probably should have, but I didn't hate the movie. Let's see. Basically a 5.5 from the critics. I don't know. Maybe a 5 from me. Maybe a 4. 5, 4, 4, 5, something like that. 7, way too high. 7 I'd reserve for a movie where I'm going to remember something about it a week from now. I won't remember anything about this movie a week from now. Not a damn thing. Not one thing can I point to and go, wow, that was spectacular. That was amazing. You know, not one thing. A couple of places they're talking about how visually stunning it is. 90% of this fucking movie, he's just walking around the ruined earth, and it's just sand and broken buildings and stuff. And rocks. That's it. I mean, Dune, this is not. You know, there's no big visually stunning scenes at all. I mean, a couple of times you get to see their little space, well, not space, but like floating condo thing with like the shattered moon in the background and all that. That looked pretty nice, but that's like, you know, a minute, tiny part of this movie. I mean, Space Odyssey, this is not. You know what I mean? I don't know. Just nothing. I think just too many missed opportunities. They used music really poorly. They used the actors really poorly. Morgan Freeman added nothing to this movie. The very few big scenes that should have been memorable, they did nothing with. Probably one of the biggest problems is the enemy. The enemy is supposed to be this big alien menace, you know, and it's supposed to basically be the puppet master behind the scenes. They did nothing with that at all. Nothing. All he does is fight these little unmanned drones the entire fucking movie. I mean, even the big scene in the end where he finally gets to talk to it, where he's going into the mothership to blow it up and he gets to chat with it, none of those lines were really that great. His big line at the very end of the movie before he presses the button is "fuck you." That's it. How fucking uninventive is that? I mean, it's just so much wasted potential. They could have had more emotional scenes too. I mean, he's been murdering basically the remnants of the humanity since, I don't know, like 50 years I think they said, or something like that, for 50 years now. There's no big scene where he realizes how much of a terrible fucking person he is or anything at all. I mean, he doesn't pause to say something like, "I'm sorry I've been murdering you guys for I don't know how long now." I mean, there's none of that. It's just, I don't know, whatever. Now that I think about it, now that I actually hashed it out and talked about the movie, I think it's probably worse than I was giving credit for. I don't even think it's mediocre. I'd say it's bad. For a multitude of reasons. For all the reasons I've listed up to this point, I'd say it's probably bad. Not the worst movie I've ever seen, but definitely below average. Honestly. I'd say like a 4. 4 out of 10. Something like that. Anyways, there was a review for you. For Oblivion. I probably wouldn't even recommend this movie, honestly. Not even if you love Tom Cruise. Or you love Morgan Freeman. Or whoever the hell else is in this movie. What was Julia's name? Principal cast. Olga I don't even know how to say that. Kurylenko? Even if you think she's the hottest woman who has ever lived, there are better movies with her in it. Go watch the James Bond movie with her in it. Way better movie, you know? There's so many better movies with Tom Cruise in it. Fucking Top Gun, easily. Or Days of Thunder. Or, you know, any of those movies in the 80s. Even if you want a movie, you know, recently, he's been in better movies. Morgan Freeman, there's a laundry list of better movies he's been in. I mean, there's really not anything as far as R rating goes either. Like if you just want blood or guts or gore or nudity or any of that, there's none of that in this movie either. When people die, they just kind of explode. That's it. Not explode as in like body parts flying everywhere. No, they just kind of evaporate. There's like a flash of light when like the laser blast hits them, and then they're just gone. That's it. There's a little bit of blood when Julia gets shot and when Morgan Freeman gets shot, which, by the way, now that I think about it, they should have been evaporated as well. They were hit by the same technology, the same guns. Why were they the only ones that didn't, you know, disintegrate into nothingness? Big plot hole. I don't know why I didn't think of that before, but yeah. Anyways, they get shot. There's a little bit of blood when they get shot. That's it. As far as nudity, Victoria Andrea Riseborough, is that how you say that? You get to see her from behind. When she like dives into the pool, she takes her clothes off, dives in the pool. You get to see an ass shot, I guess. That's it. So there's really no draw for this movie. I mean, no nudity, not much action, not much sci-fi. I'd say the romance is the biggest part of this movie, and they handle it so poorly that there's no real emotion to it. So I don't even know who I would recommend this movie for. Honestly, I can't think of anyone. Honestly, I have no idea. I'm at a loss. So I don't know. There was a review for you. I'll see you guys next time. Sound like it's the worst movie ever. Having said that, the plot made sense once it got going. You know, everything pieced together well, and the characters weren't terrible. There was no irritating little nagging black spots, you know, on the movie, that kind of thing. Something that I can point to and go, wow, that really sucked. As a whole, it wasn't great. To do something cool, something happened, something memorable. That's where all the big moments are. You know, that's where people get the great lines and the big climactic, you know, battle scenes and things happen, you know? This movie had way too much setup, way too much setup, and there was very little payoff. Having said that, that seems like I'm making the long version, gonna be spoilers, obviously. The pace was painful, really painful. Movies are usually broken up into the setup and then the payoff. The setup is them letting you know about the characters and their past and the history and all the tidbits. And then the payoff is using the information we've learned throughout the movie, just period. I mean, in movies that are truly great, that are truly amazing, that are worth, you know, like 8s and 9s and 10s and stuff like that, there are amazing scenes, amazing memorable scenes where you can point to it. Like, you know, like Top Gun, where he's lost his confidence and he doesn't want to fly anymore and he doesn't want to engage. Alright, hello people, I'm the Dude and this is my review rant for Oblivion, the newest Tom Cruise movie. Short and sweet, it was okay, I guess. A little slower than I would like, a little less memorable than I would like, but it was okay.